MENA region, within my scope, several verticals. So a brief update on the advertising business group. The ABG is a regional advertising and marketing self-regulatory body whose purpose is to advocate for responsible and ethical marketing practices. We do this by identifying and promoting worldwide best practices and sometimes localizing them when needed. Our aim is to improve local industry standards. The ABG is registered under the Dubai Chamber of Commerce. Since our launch in November 2016, we have grown our membership base from 16 to over 75 members, which includes advertisers like Unilever, Nestlé, P&G, L'Oréal, PepsiCo, Mars, etc. Platforms, Google, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, media agencies and media selling companies, publicists, Dentsu, WPP, MCN, Choueiri Group, etc., OMG, obviously. Broadcasters, NBC Group, outdoor companies, retail companies, consultants, global payment and technology companies, research agencies. And we recently had the pleasure to welcome Nielsen, Zephyr, Amazon, and Ipsos to the ABG. So our members now account for about 75% of the region's ad spend. And we extend today a warm welcome to our panelist, Nick Stringer, who is the Vice President of the Trustworthy Accountability Group, also called TAG, to Rohit Batra, who is the Senior Director for P&G, and Elda Choucair, who is the CEO of OMG, and Imad Sarrouf, who is the Head of Technology at DMS, a member of the Choueiri Group. They will share insights on TAG and the need for certification across the media spectrum. You will hear more from Nick shortly on the specifics about TAG, but from our side, I want to emphasize how important it is for agencies, publishers, and media owners to be TAG certified. In a digital age, as online investments continue to grow, fighting invalid traffic is essential for the long-term sustainability of the broader digital advertising ecosystem. We recognized that our collective success relies on the trust that advertisers and publishers place in the digital advertising. And keeping invalid traffic out of our ad systems and processes enables advertisers to maximize their returns and legitimate publishers to maximize their revenue. It is important to acknowledge that in most cases, we are not facing one-off fraudsters. A significant source of ad fraud is from sophisticated, coordinated organizations looking for a source of easy revenue. The complexity of the ecosystem is a challenge. Who owns the problem? Who is responsible for fixing it? The industry must work together to combat this issue. Everyone can do a little. For example, from a publisher standpoint, if traffic bought is too good to be true, it probably is. Only buy from trusted sources. From an advertiser standpoint, invalid traffic looks great at a very low CPM. But beware of using trusted sources and be mindful of attributing spend to inventory sources that are too good to be true. And now, from an industry standpoint, there is a strong need for the ABG, the IAB, the TAG, and other organizations at global level, like the MRC and others, to work together on common standards and programs. TAG certifications against ad fraud is one of these standards that is having a significant impact on reducing ad fraud across the world. In the USA, key markets in Europe, and many markets in Asia-Pacific regions, ad fraud rates are over 90% lower when advertisers use TAG-certified distribution channels compared to industry averages. So TAG's launch today in the GCC is a really big development for us, as it will raise the benchmark for local standards by reducing fraud, stimulating growth, and driving trust in our industry. On a practical level, TAG is tackling the issue of malvertising head-on through their certifications and combating threats to the digital advertising supply chain via its threat-sharing exchange. I urge you to take the time to familiarize yourself with their tools. I reiterate, these are not just nice to have, but essential knowledge and training. And we are seeing more companies insisting on dealing with only the partners who are tag approved or tag certified. So before I hand over to Nick, who will take us through tag's work in detail and to the panel, I'd like to invite you to post your comments and questions in the chat box throughout the session, and stay muted while the speakers are on to avoid background noise. There will be live Q&A sessions at the end after the keynote of Nick and the panel. And now, Nick, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Marie, and I think you've done my job. I think we can just move on. No, I'm kidding. Hello, I'm from the UK. This is my attic at home where I've been stuck for the last 18 months. But actually, I'll be coming out to Dubai in December, which I'll come on to in a moment. So let me just share some slides with you. If Marie or Charlotte could confirm when the technology is working, and I'll start. But just whilst that's happening, I just want to say thank you to ABG and IAB for this opportunity, for the partnership. It went live today. We're very keen to encourage companies to adopt and comply with the standards to combat fraud, malvertising, and also to promote brand safety. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Can you see the slides, Charlotte or Marie? Can you confirm?
Yes.
Someone else is sharing now.
We were seeing them a minute ago, but now no. Now it's something different.
Well, I don't know what this is because this is not my content.
Charlotte?
Not mine either. Not mine.
Hang on. I will try and override it so you can see what we're supposed to see. Sorry about this. So look, whilst this is happening, there's a news release out today. There's some PR coverage, and also there's more information on the ABG site today, including some FAQs and a process. And we go into the detail there. There's obviously information on TAG site. So this is quite a lot of months work in trying leading up to this point, and many of you and some of you will be part of international businesses already, are already part of TAG. So this is not necessarily new to you, or might be new to you individually, but not new to your company. And we've worked on implementing this in a tailored way to the GCC market, and that's really important for me because TAG has an approach which is very much a sort of global standards for local markets. And I think what's really important here is that we have a consistent global approach, but one that's also right and apt and tailored for the local market, in this case, GCC. I should also say that TAG is sort of on the ground working with a media consultancy called MedPush, operates across the MENA region, to help brief and introduce TAG to companies. And as I said, I will be in Dubai on the 4th and 5th the 5th and 6th of December. So happy to meet with companies as necessary, and my details are at the end of the presentation. So moving on. So look, I mentioned that there are international businesses that will be familiar with TAG. Some won't. So let me just give you a quick overview of what we do. So we were set up in 2014 by US advertising trade bodies, but very much run for and by companies, and many of you are on the call. It's an international self-regulatory or standards cross-industry standards organization or initiative, which was specifically set up to tackle criminal activity and promote brand safety in digital advertising. And I'll come on to why CAG was set up in the first place. So the seals that you see here are standards that have been written by companies. They're industry standards to tackle ad fraud, invalid traffic, non-human traffic, whatever you want to call it, malware, specifically malvertising, and also to promote brand safety. And what I mean by that, because that's a very big catch-all word, to minimize the risk of ad misplacement. And these standards are underpinned by the market-facing trading seals that you can see on the screens. And I'm going to talk you through the standards in a moment, but suffice to say that there are requirements for all companies. And then going back to Marie's point about this is a collaboration, not just a collaboration between trade bodies, but a collaboration between different parties in the digital advertising supply chain. Everybody has a role to play, which is extremely important. So going on, why did the US trade bodies set up TAG? Why is it important? And I think we can all look to individual markets. There's some stats from IAB and the MENA region and see that the growth and evolution of programmatic has come with some very significant challenges. And on the right here is a report from the advertising, the ANA in the US, the advertiser group there, and White Ops, which is of course now called Human, which points to advertisers losing $5.8 billion globally in 2019 to bot-generated invalid traffic. And there are similar kind of statistics for losing money to pirates, for ad-supported piracy, and also to malware. And of course, malware has a very detrimental impact on consumers as well, which I'll come back to. So we're very familiar with a lot of these issues, and I've highlighted the ones that TAG specifically deals with. We don't deal with privacy or measurement or infrastructure costs, but we do deal with invalid traffic. We do seek to tackle piracy, where ads appear on sites that infringe intellectual property. And we do, as I mentioned earlier, look at trying to reduce the risk of ad misplacement. So, you know, it's programmatic. I think it's 21% in the MENA region, but it's as much as 76% of digital ad spend in the UK region. So, very significant growth. But with that growth comes challenges and, of course, opportunities to work together to tackle them. So, before I talk about the individual standards, I wanted to talk about the key points and the key value points. And I think Marie summed this up very nicely, and probably better than I'm going to sum it up earlier. And what TAG does is we actually verify the legitimacy of every business that's part of TAG. And there's over 700 businesses in 40 countries around the world, including in GCC in the Middle East. And each has a tag ID, which can be used in OpenRTB protocol and ads.txt. And the idea is to confirm the legitimacy of the business. That's all, not the trustworthy nature, but the legitimacy. There are many fraudsters out there that are disguising themselves as legitimate businesses. So this is the first step of what TAG does. So every business has to confirm their legitimacy to be involved in TAG self-regulatory programs. And then the second point is the point for trustworthy. It's being legitimate is the gateway to trustworthy inventory, to be a trusted party, being certified by the standards and having trustworthy inventory, cleaner and safer inventory. And the third point, and I hope Rohit at P&G will support this, is at the end of the day, it's about the brand not being damaged by fraud, piracy, or malware, or indeed its ads appearing next to some offensive or illegal content. And the bottom line is that the goal for the client and the advertiser is that they get better return on investment and better advertising if companies in the supply chain, and we've seen that with some of the research that Marie talked about, and I'll talk about in a moment. So very important to advertisers' bottom line that companies in the supply chain adhere to standards. And look, I don't want to dwell on this too much, but we'll circulate this this deck, and obviously we can have bilateral meetings to talk about this in more detail. But the proof points are here, and Marie mentioned the tag certified against fraud standard, where we've done, and I've got a slide later on about this. We've done research in various parts of the world where we found that advertisers buying through a supply chain that is adhering to the standards, certified channels, we call them, have significantly less ad fraud than industry averages. And I go back to the point here about companies actually achieving a better bottom line by meeting requirements that meet those buyer expectations. On the brand safety certification, so TAG merged with a sort of similar organization called JITWebs in the UK, which had a very strong brand safety standard, and we've adopted that and made it global. So that was just a UK thing. And that is where companies can have more control over ad inventory and actually reduce the risk of ad misplacement and ad piracy, as I said. And we've done a lot of research, and here's a lot of issues like ad fraud, very B2B issues. But here is a very important issue for consumers. So 91% of UK consumers said actually it was important for advertisers to make sure their ads are not placed near dangerous, offensive, or inappropriate content. And at the end of the day, companies can actually. There's a little bit of feedback. I think it's gone now, so thank you for muting. Companies can actually command greater premiums if inventory is deemed more brand safe by buyers, and of course go back to that point about the better return of investment for brands. And last but not least is the tag certified against malware standard. And again, this is an important consumer-facing issue because 93% of consumers, and this is in the US, would actually reduce their spending on an advertised product if an ad was infected, if an ad infected a user's device with malware. And I'll come back to that. And so the standard puts in place safeguards like detecting and monitoring for malware, such as scanning, so that we can mitigate or companies can mitigate the risk of malware in ads on digital properties. So look, I think I've gone into a lot of detail about each of the standards, and this is available on. There's a summary on the ABG website. There's a summary and the actual standard itself on the tag site. What do we mean for the standards, and what are the requirements? And I should say that each of these standards is supported by a working group. We have a working group of companies because, of course, they are the ones with the screwdrivers. You are the ones that can write the standards and develop the standards and ensure that they meet the market's needs, the technology's needs, and obviously the way that, for example, fraudsters are moving, because they move as fast, if not faster, than we do. And you can see here from we break up the market in an extremely binary way. It's obviously more fluid than that this, and a lot of companies, you know, products sit in different categories. And something I really want to point out, and a lot of people ask me this, is, you know, what is the relationship between Tag and vendors like Integral Ad Science or Double Verify or Pixelate? And the answer to that is that Tag is not a technology organization. We don't have the skills and expertise to solve these problems on our own. We wrap up these approaches in standards, or rather the companies do. So we work with vendors, and vendors work with companies to help meet the requirements of the standards. And just want to pull out three or four from here, which is, well, actually it's 5, but I call it the 4 filters. So this is where a vendor will help to employ invalid traffic detection, removal, but also app and domain filtering, and also data threat filtering. And we actually have a data center IP exclusion list that companies can use to tackle data center IP threats as well. And then, of course, there's transparency tools like ads.txt and appads.txt that you may well be familiar with. I'm sure you are. The thing I should say here is that, so this is not new for international businesses. We're not adding to the requirements here, other than ensuring that certification covers this area of the world, the GCC region. And something we have talked about with ABG and IAB is that there are 2 ways to certify: self-attestation, self-declaration. Self-attestation is very much a US word, and independent validation. And that's certainly the direction of travel, moving to be independently validated by a third party. And that's what we're requiring in the GCC region. So if you're an international business and you're already complying with the Certified Against Fraud requirement, you need to ensure that certification is independently validated in the GCC region. And that applies also in, you know, obviously if you're doing it globally, but in the UK, in parts of Europe, and also China as well, where we have partnered with the China Advertising Association, and they have required independent validation for compliance there. So I'm not going to dwell on this too much. Marie mentioned it. So we've done multiple studies in the US dating back to 2016, in Europe, in key markets in Europe, so the UK, Germany, France, Italy, and the Netherlands since 2018. We've done a couple of snapshots in Asia Pacific, covering areas like India, Australia, Singapore, Japan, New Zealand, and Indonesia. And then we've done individual snapshots for the UK and Germany in Europe, and we're looking at doing one in Japan as well. And as I said, and as Marie said at the beginning, each of these, and the materials on the Tag website, each of these shows that when advertisers buy through Tag certified channels, the level of ad fraud is significantly lower than industry rates. And we put 90% here because that's the general reduction across the board, but it does vary from region to region and market to market, as you can imagine. So the brand safety certification standard is, as I said, it originates in the UK, and because the UK market has had this for some time, and it's had very strong traction. And as Tag merged with JITwebs there in the UK, we adopted this brand safety standard, and we are now making it available on a global level, not just for the UK. And I think the bottom line is, you know, brand safety is a catch-all world. So we're talking about minimizing ad misplacement. So no reputable brand wants their ads placed near objectionable or even illegal content, such as pirate sites. So this standard seeks to do that. It seeks to put in place requirements for companies to use content verification tools for inclusion and exclusion lists to minimize the risk of ad misplacement. We used to have TAG used to have a standalone anti-piracy standard, and we've injected this in July. We've injected this. That'll go live at the beginning of next year on the 1st of January. And that includes various anti-piracy requirements like using mobile app filtering as well. And the specific details I'm not going to walk you through now, but they're on the website. And independent validation, as I said, is mandatory regardless of where you're doing that. This is something that was very strong request from the buy side in the UK, and we've kept with that. And so independent validation is mandatory wherever you are applying, whether it's globally, regionally, or nationally. Wherever you are applying the standard, you need to have a third-party audit to look at that compliance to ensure that it's robust. And lastly, the certified against malware. I mean, this is tackling malvertising. If people aren't aware of this, we're talking about malware that's distributed through ad creative or ad tags or landing pages even. And so what we've done is we've created a standard that that companies can adhere to, and I pull out the effective malvertising detection and removal services such as scanning campaign assets as one of the key requirements. I think there's research that says 1 in every 100 ad impressions is impacted by malicious ads. So this is something that probably isn't as well understood and aware as issues like minimizing ad misplacement and tackling ad fraud, but it's certainly raising up the agenda as a challenge as we evolve as an industry. And unlike the other two, we allow companies to self-attest their compliance. There is a third-party audit if you choose, but it's not mandatory. So I'm conscious of time, and we want to move on to hear what the independent or the experts say. But I just want to say something about independent validation because I get a lot of questions about this. So what we're talking about is a third party coming in to check compliance, and I've got a list of. We don't have approved providers, but I've got a list of those that we do work very closely with. And as I said, independent validation will be mandatory if a company wishes to adhere to the tag certified against fraud in the GCC region, and the standard will actually specifically outline this as it does for the UK, as it does for China and other parts of the world. And then, as I said, companies may also comply to the malware standard by self-attestation. So the list of companies, and again, this is not an exclusive list. There isn't an approved provider list, and you may know some of these, and you'll be very familiar with some of the larger ones like PwC or EY. And MedPush is also a local company that is offering this service as well in the region. And the CAICT is one based in China. So, I mean, we can have these conversations when we get down into the detail, but suffice to say that these are the companies that we're currently working with. So I'm going to stop now. Here are my details, and please reach out if you want more information. There's lots on the site. There's lots on the ABG site. And as I said, 5th and 6th of December, I'll be in Dubai. So if you want to meet and have a further discussion, then very happy to do that. So I think what we're going to do now is, and as Marie said, we'll take your questions if there have been any during this expert industry panel. But what I wanted to do was to get the industry panel to actually introduce themselves and to talk about how this is important to them and their businesses and the trade bodies that they represent. So I'm going to start with Elda, if that's all right. I'm going to go over to you, and if you could introduce yourself and then give us a short few words, and then we'll move on to Imad.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone. My name is Elda Choucair. I'm the CEO of Omnicom Media Group, and I also represent the ABG as the vice chair, along with Marie, my colleague in the ABG. So what does it mean to have to launch TAG in our region? I think you know it's really a proud moment. We should all be proud that this is happening in our industry, in our region. It's this is how we can say our industry is growing up, and it's taking more professional approaches to how we do digital advertising at large. I think from the perspective of the ABG, what this means is something that the ABG has long been advocating. We want advertising to be we want to raise the standard of digital advertising in our region. For the longest time, I think the growth has been happening exponentially over the last few years. We have to all admit that digital advertising, as much as we like otherwise, but it is unregulated, not only in our region, but in general in the world. And the way that the digital advertising has grown over the years, it's happened at a pace faster than anyone could regulate. So I think these are the efforts where we stop and say, how can we make it safer? How can we make it more transparent? How can we make sure that every dollar spent in advertising is going to the right place? What we don't want is to create, a bad advertising experience or an unsafe advertising experience. We have children who are consuming advertising on a daily basis. We have brands that are investing dollars that don't come easy, right? And they're investing these dollars into digital advertising, not knowing which dollar is going, in the safe route and which is not. So I think, from an ABG perspective, it's all about raising the standards. It's all about elevating the premise of advertising. It's all about fighting ad fraud and making sure that the advertising spends and these brands are achieving better effectiveness when they're advertising. And from an agency perspective, we have a responsibility towards the advertisers, towards our clients and the brands that we are custodians of. We have a responsibility that when we take these advertising budgets, distribute them, when we book the media, these spends and this advertising is being placed in environments that actually, first of all, are valid, and second of all, are effective. They're going to the right eyeballs. So that's my position from both the ABG and the agency side.
Thank you, Elda. Let me introduce Imad now. I want to, sorry, there's a little bit of background noise there. I want to thank Imad in particular because he has stepped in for his colleague Mikhail, who was advertised as attending the panel but can't be here. So thank you, Imad, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much. And thank you for this opportunity. So a quick intro. My name is Imad Sarrouf. I have been working for DMS at Choueiri Group for the past decade or so. And, I'm focused on technology for publishers. So, and that not only covers ad technology, but other technologies that the publishers might use. So at Choueiri Group, we position ourselves as the voice of the independent publisher. And we were first to bring Moat as a measurement solution back in 2016. So we've been working on offering transparency on measurement to agencies and clients since then, not only on viewability, but also on invalid traffic and fraud, etc. And we've always beaten the benchmark by 50 or more %, respectively, be it on different, be it as a desktop or mobile or app. So the benchmark varies per platform. But since we work exclusively with publishers and we are one seller only, irrespective of the format, this makes our effort, our focused effort, easier or manageable when it comes to fighting against fraud. And the partnership with the publisher is a true partnership. So when it comes to that, we work alongside chief editors, moderators, journalists, content creators, etc. So whatever we offer as publisher is premium when it comes to the environment and the content. So we offer a brand safe haven for media spend and brands against their spend. And whatever content is there is fact-checked, it is original, there's no misinformation whatsoever, and it is moderated. So when it comes to tag and what tag is trying to do, this will complement our partnership with Moat and will, working against fraud. And this will amplify our transparency approach with the agencies and the clients, alongside positioning our portfolio as a premium publisher. And this will give us the opportunity to be always whitelisted, as Elda just mentioned, that this would lead to a whitelist initiative where media will be spent on those publishers, given that they have the right certification and methodology of measurement through a third party to validate their traffic and eyeballs. Yeah, I'm passing the buck now to Rohit, I presume. Thank you.
Thank you, Imad. Yes, over to Rohit from Procter & Gamble.
Hi everyone. Rohit here. Good to be part of this discussion today, and of course, a very responsible discussion. So this is Rohit. I'm managing purchases for Procter & Gamble media across Asia Pacific and Middle East Africa region. A lot has been covered by Nick, Elda, across, but I just want to take us back to a few years, and a lot of us have gone through this journey. When a lot of leaders across the industry, including our CMO, Mark Pritchard, they made a call for action for better advertising. And the whole reason for better advertising was to drive growth, enabled by media transparency and driving a very clean and a productive media supply chain. We have come a long way since then. We have adopted viewability standards, implemented third-party verification setups, transparency in contracts, and also prevented ad frauds. Where have we gone in this region? I think, as I said, we have come a long way, but there is still a lot to do, especially in our part of the world, in our part of the region. And as more and more of our audiences move to digital platforms, we need to take it on ourselves, and we need to have this goal to foster a more transparent and a trusted digital supply chain. And TAG being one of the major initiatives there, and we need to make sure that driving this should not be an option. It is a responsibility. It is a responsibility to our brands, to our consumers, and to a broader set of audiences in general. And we got to take this responsibility seriously. So we continue to encourage and work with digital media which is trusted, which is transparent and certified, and make sure that it is free from frauds. And we will encourage more and more partners and more inventories to be free from fraud, so that we actually, it'll be a day, or our aim will be when we do not have to whitelist anything, because everything is whitelisted. Everything what we are working with, we believe it is clean and it is a trusted source of media. So that should be the aim as an industry, that we don't, publishers like us or advertisers like us have no need to whitelist before putting our ads out there. So with that, I think that would be my plea to everyone, that we need to work towards that day. And this is a big enabler to work towards that day. And we need to start adopting more and more of tag certification and more of driving transparency through the digital media supply chain.
Thank you, Rohit, and also thank you, Elda and Imad. So there are a couple of questions that have come in, which I want to take now, and we can also open it up for people who want to ask questions live. So the first one, and I think it kind of follows on nicely with what you were saying, Rohit. So this is a question which is specifically around P&G. So P&G has taken a very robust approach, and you mentioned that, and you mentioned what Mark Pritchett has said. And I know the team in the US at TAG have worked very closely with P&G and its agencies there. What action will P&G take in the Gulf region after this, and formally launching TAG in the region?
As I said, I think we take it imperative on ourselves, and we believe it is a very joint responsibility across us, across the group on this call and the broader industry, to drive media as a trusted source. It is a responsibility. We owe it back to everyone. And we want to work this in the right manner. We do not want to make this a knee-jerk reaction for any one of us, understanding the challenges which go behind it, and hopefully assuming that all of us intend towards a cleaner supply chain of media. And hence you see we broadly are working with platforms which give us a cleaner source of inventory. We go with various whitelisting approaches as well, and we believe we will continue to work in that direction and make sure that at least the inventory with which we are working is clean, whitelisted, and comes through the right certifications and the trusted sources. Whether this journey will be done in few months or few years, that is all back up to us, and we want to encourage that we do this journey much faster than later.
Okay, that's helpful. I don't know if Elda, if you want to add anything from a buy side point of view. I mean, I know you've said quite a lot already.
I think our collaboration, maybe it's worth mentioning, as Omnicom Media Group with TAG specifically, is focused more on the brand safety. But again, from one element, I think especially in 2020 has been many of the operations and offices of Omnicom Media Group around the world have been TAG certified to ensure that we're delivering the advertising that we're responsible for in a brand safe environment. So I think TAG helped us a lot in that sense. I think from an agency perspective, we'd love that all the publishers would just adopt this and embrace it, because again, this is about raising the bar. This is about making sure we grow our industry. This is about making sure that the publishers that are doing everything they can to provide this environment get the right increase their value, and get a bigger share of advertising and a higher value to the dollars. And so you're rewarding good behavior and good practices. So yeah, I mean, this is where we come together as an industry and say, you know what, this is an opportunity for us to all do the right thing.
Thank you, and I think that sort of follows on, and maybe I can ask Imad this. So from Elda's point about raising the bar, I mean, do you what kind of message have you got for for other publishers? Obviously, you represent very large publishers, very large media owners, and do you have a message for other publishers?
Yeah, I mean, first, First message, I would say to consolidate the technology. The more you have sellers via technology, the more you are vulnerable. So I would say I would recommend that, having that sort of consolidation. And the second one, have some kind of course, certification or automation. So what we have benefited from is when we started working with Moat, we immediately created like an automation system. Anything that goes beyond the benchmark, we are automatically notified by email, and we immediately work with the publisher to address that. So we were able to solve a few hiccups at the beginning in less than 24 hours, where we have identified some malicious IPs here and there, and we cut the cord immediately. So I would say certification, yes, but it has to come with certain processes that are set in place.
That's helpful, thank you. So I've got a question here, which is really aimed at me. So I will answer it. It's around the audit or independent validation, and does this need to happen in every country? And I really want to stress that audit's quite a strong word. I think independent validation in many ways is better, and it's certainly not audit in the same guise of as a sort of financial audit. And the answer is no, it doesn't have to happen in every country. That would be very burdensome. So if you're an international business, you audit once for your certification, be it globally or be it regionally or be it nationally. So if you're a publisher and you only operate in UAE, then you're auditing just in that market. But again, if you're a publisher that works globally, you audit once for all your operations across the world. And it's a really good question, because again, it's something that I get asked a lot. And if you look at the ABG site, there's a set of FAQs that specifically addresses this point, along with the vendor point, the difference between or how TAG is working with vendors like Integral Ad Science as well. There's an FAQ on that. So I wanted to address that question. So thank you for asking that. We actually haven't got any more questions via the chat, but perhaps if anyone wants to raise specific questions, they can unmute themselves and ask it. So I can open the floor, and perhaps if Marie or anyone else wants to ask questions, then please do. Sorry to call you out, Marie.
No worries. I have a very practical question that I think could benefit everyone. Once a company is certified by TAG, where does it show? Like, is there a registry or something where people can look up for publishers or companies that are registered?
Yeah, so that it's a really good question, and there's multiple ways that a company can demonstrate their compliance. So first of all, TAG has a TAG registry where we list all companies that are legitimate. It's like a yellow pages or white papers, as they call in the US. Yellow pages is an old-fashioned term that we used to have a yellow pages in the UK. But it's like a directory of all legitimate businesses. But then it also has what certifications they have, where it's applied, which markets, and how they're certifying, whether it's through self-attestation or independent validation, which is the direction of travel that I mentioned earlier. And going back to what I was saying right at the beginning, there are a set of seals that underpin each of these standards. And quite often we work with businesses, their marketing and comms team, because they want to put the seal on their site, or they want to use it in their PR because they want to demonstrate that they are adhering to the certification. So there's a number of ways that companies can do this, can demonstrate their compliance, whether it's to partners, to clients, and of course to competitors as well. So yeah, great question. Thanks, Marie.
I found it on your website actually, so I just added it to the chat.
Yeah, it's a little how do I say, it's not as sophisticated as it can be, but we are working on improving it and doing things like ensuring that the tag ID can be passed through inventory and the supply chain in an automatic way rather than a manual way, which is, obviously how we had to start the process. But, thank you for that. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question, another one, regarding the process that, let's say a publisher wants to get tag certified. How long do you estimate the process to be? Does it involve, big effort from the part of the publisher? How do you estimate this?
First to say is on the ABG site, there's actually a step-by-step process so that companies can follow that and how they get involved. But to answer your question specifically, it really depends on the company. We often find that intermediary or ad tech companies are quite advanced in their approach and technology, and a publisher maybe less so. So it really depends on the company, but we can move tag, that is, as fast as that company. We have a head of compliance based in the US who does look at the applications and so he can move very, very quickly. So again, just to answer your question, it does depend on the business. The first step of being getting a company legitimate can take a working week. That's very quick. It's a background check done by a company called Dun & Bradstreet based in the US. But the certification, the actual meeting the standards, does depend on the company itself. But we, as I said, we had a head of compliance. We can get on a call. He can walk individuals of that company through the specific requirements, kind of the ones I highlighted earlier. So we can hold hands and walk companies through this. Thank you, Marie. Thank you for both questions. If anyone else has got a question, then speak now or forever hold your peace. Otherwise, I will hand it to Ian Manning at the IAB. Does anyone have any last questions, or I'll hand to Ian. Ian, I think to you.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks very much, Nick. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's been a really interesting conversation. So firstly, thanks to everyone who joined the call. It's great to see so many people interested in trying to move this industry forward in a more sort of transparent, accountable and trustworthy way. And I think that's where we'll see significant growth for our industry if we start to behave in that kind of way. So thank you for your time, firstly. Thanks to the speakers who have put up their time as well. And as Nick said, thanks, Imad, for stepping in literally at the last moment. I don't think you had more than a few minutes preparation, but I thought you acquitted yourself perfectly. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Just maybe one thing to end off on, Nick. We've talked a lot about the principles of tag and how this works. I guess one thing many people might be asking is, what's the next step? How do they actually kick this process off? And I think you said contact you. And I hope you then have a problem of 400 emails in your inbox, but I guess there might be another way of doing that as well. So perhaps you want to end off on a practical note of how they go about kicking this off. And then, as I say, thanks to everyone for joining the call, and let's get this let's get going. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, just to quickly end on that, just to answer that question. Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to facilitate 400 emails. But there's also, as I mentioned, there's an FAQ on the ABG website with a step-by-step process, which companies can follow. And getting involved doesn't involve a direct email with me, although eventually it will come to me and we will have an engagement. And that's the process, is really, me getting to understand the business, engaging with the business to learn how the standards apply, the requirements apply to the individual business. So yeah, there's lots on the site, but happy for people to email me directly. Back
Nick,
to you.
I think there is a question from Layal on the chat. She asks, will this affect our work as programmatic executives? And if yes, how?
Well, I think it will affect it, but I think it'll affect it in a positive way because, you know, as I said, going back to right at the beginning of my presentation, this is about addressing some of the challenges that have come out of the increase in programmatic in digital advertising. So I think it will, you know, I hope that this will become the norm, going back to what Rohit said about white lists and inclusion lists and those becoming the norm. So I hope I'm answering the question. If I'm not answering the question correctly, then or I'm not understanding the question correctly, then please let me know. But I think that's what the question was. Anyway, if you want to follow up, if I'm not answering the question, you want to follow up, then please email me. Ian, I'll let you have the final word.
Great, thanks, Nick. Yeah, and as I said, thanks to everybody for making your time available. As Nick said, if you are interested, please reach out to him directly through the TAG website or via the ABG or the IAB. We're all supporting this initiative to try and make our industry more trustworthy, more transparent, and obviously more accountable, which we believe will lead to more growth for us as an industry. So thanks very much to everyone for making the time, and we will be in touch shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, guys.